Welcome to another episode of Code with Gigi. In this episode, I'll explain and simplify high-order components in React. What is a HOC in React? The definition on the React website states an HOC is a function that takes a component and returns a component. Great, but what exactly does that mean? And why do we have this pattern? The main reason, or actually the only reason, is to reuse code. Or as they say in software, keep it dry, don't repeat yourself. Say we have a component, and this component does some logic and fetches some data from an external API. And then it returns JSX, or it displays the data. Now with an HOC, we take or abstract out that logic or that data fetching, and we'll put it in a high order function, which takes that component as an argument and then returns an enhanced component, which in turn returns JSX. I know that all sounds really confusing. So why would we do this? Why not just have a component that does all of that? Here's a use case. Say we have 3 components now, and they all have very similar logic. They all fetch some data from an external API and then return some JSX, but they style things differently and it's different data structure. So in this case, we can abstract out the common logic between these 3 components and put that in our high order function and then return an enhanced version of the component. This way now, you're changing the logic in one place instead of in multiple places. This is really useful in large applications, and it's very commonly used in third-party libraries. Okay, now let's just walk through a code example using high-order components. Okay, for this demo, I'm going to use a Next.js app. So I'm going to create a brand new app, and to do that, it's npx create next app at latest, and then I'm just going to call this HOC episode, and then everything I'm going to just leave these as defaults for now. Alright, so once that's finished, I'm going to cd into my directory, and then I'm going to open this in VS Code. All right, let me now go ahead and run this app. So it's just npm run dev. If you're not familiar with Next.js, visit Next.js website for more details. I'm going to go into this pages directory and go into this index. And I'm just going to clean this all up. Just delete a lot of the sample code in here. Oops. Let's just call this my HOC episode. Okay, I think this is all cleaned up now. All right, now I'm going to create a couple of components. Both will be fetching something from an external API. So first I'm going to create a new folder inside the source directory, and we'll call this components. And then I'm going to create a new file, and I'll create a component called picture or pictures.js. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to import React and then use effect and use state from React. Okay, and then just const pictures, and we'll just return something really simple here. Let's return picture of dog. All right, I'm gonna create a function here. Let's call it fetch picture, and we're gonna use the JavaScript fetch API, and I just pulled a free public API from GitHub that gets a random picture of a dog. If you're interested, if you just Google public APIs, there's a great GitHub page with a list of public APIs. So let me go and grab that and I'll paste it in a minute. Oops, here I need to put set data. Let's go ahead and create a const data variable and then set data. Set that equal to use state. And we'll just initialize that to null for now. And then let's go ahead and call our fetch picture when our component mounts, and we're going to use effect here. Okay. We don't need that second argument here because we just want this to run out when the component mounts. So fetch picture here. And then let me go ahead and paste that API URI here. And again, if you just Google public APIs, there's a GitHub page. All right, so let's go ahead and display back the picture of the dog here. So I'm just gonna add an image. And the source will be data dot, I believe it was message in this API. And then let's just set a width for now. I'm gonna set it to 400. All right, and let me just add a little bit of styling here. Let's make this a flex box. Oops, flex. And then let me center it on the page. So justify content, and we'll just set that to center. And that should be good enough for now. We have the component, we're fetching the picture, and then we're displaying it. All right, so that's good enough for now. We are fetching a random picture of a dog from the API, and then we're displaying it. So here I'm just gonna make sure we have the data and then display. Otherwise, let's just have an if here. Just set, let's display like no data available. Oops, no picture is available yet. All right, that should do it for now. And then let's go ahead and we need to export this so that we can import it and use it in our index page. So export default pictures. All right, let's go ahead and, oops, I'm gonna rename this to picture instead of pictures. And then that should be you. Okay, looks like I have a typo here. Should be use effect, I forgot the C. All right, there we go. All right, that looks okay now. Let's go ahead and go to our index page. And I'm gonna go ahead and let me clean this up, remove these unused imports first. All right. We're going to import pictures or picture, and then let's go ahead and display this. I'm just going to display it right here on the page in the center. All right, and there we go. We have a picture of a dog on the page now. All right, I'm going to go back into the components directory here, and I want to create another component, and I'm just going to copy the picture.js, and I'm going to rename this to quote.js because it's going to be very similar. I'm going to fetch something from an API again. This time I'm going to fetch a quote. So almost everything is the same except the URI to the API, and then I won't be displaying an image. I'll just be displaying some text here. So let me make those changes. So if you notice already, there's some code duplication, right? We're repeating kind of the same logic here. We've got we've got a data variable that we're setting. We've got a fetch, similar fetch function or exact same fetch function except the URI. We've got the use effect is basically doing the same thing, calling the fetch, setting the data, and then even the logic is kind of similar, but that might be a little bit different here. And then the data structure is different here. Instead of data.message, I believe for this API, the data structure is data.quote, and then it has an author. So let me put data.author, and something is wrong. Okay, no, I don't need an image tag here. Let me make this a div instead of an image. And delete that. Clean this up a little bit. Okay, there we go. Now that we have that, that's it. We can save this, and then let's go back to our index, and same thing as the picture. We're just going to go ahead and import quote from quote, and then I'm just going to display it right underneath the image. All right, let's save that. All right, and as you can see now, there's a picture of a dog, and then there's a quote that's displayed under the picture. Let me go ahead and move this picture up so we can see it better. Move it above the... All right, there we go at the top of the page. That looks a little bit better. All right, so now we're displaying the picture and the quote. These two components are doing very similar logic, because you can see we've got kind of duplicated code. So let's say I need to handle errors. So if there's an error with fetch somewhere or something, I'm gonna need to, I wanna be able to display that. So just for fun, I'm gonna just fake an error here and just mistype JSON. This should throw an error. I'm gonna save that. Let me go ahead and refresh this. And all right, so error is not defined, so we have another error, a syntax error anyway. So let me fix that. That's error. There we go. So now I'm displaying an error, but as you can see now, I have a same error in my quotes. So I fixed something in pictures, I have to go fix it again in quotes. So for code maintenance, this could become a real hassle if I'm doing very similar type of logic or anything that's similar between the components. I can abstract this out now into a higher order component. So let me go ahead and display the error for now here. And then let me create a error variable to set that when there's an error. So error, and then set error, and then use state, and I'm just going to set that to null, initialize it to null. All right, and let's see. Let's go ahead and set error in our catch. Okay, well, let me do this first. So if there's no error, no pictures available yet, and then if there is an error, let's go ahead and display an error. All right, so we've got data. If there's data, then we display the data. If there's no error but no data, then we'll just say it's not available yet while it's loading. And then finally the error. All right, so objects are not valid. All right, so it should be error.message here. All right, there we go. And now we've got error displayed here. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that typo and fix that. There we go. Now everything's working. We're handling the error and we are displaying it. But again, I don't want to have to go through and duplicate this code over and over between these components that kind of have the same logic. So the solution here is, let's create a higher order component and abstract out the similarity, and then we'll use that, and that way when we do need to make changes, we make the changes there. So I'm going to create a new file directly in my source directory called with fetch, and let's just go ahead and import a couple of things I know we're going to need, which is use state and use effect from React. And then I'm going to export const with fetch. And now remember, a higher order component receives a component and returns an enhanced component, basically. But I'm going to go ahead and add another argument here for the URI to the API. And you can have as many arguments. It's basically a function. And then I'm going to also handle any leftover props from the component, since this is a higher order component. And oops, I cannot type today. All right. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Let's fix that. Yeah, let me move so we can see this better. All right, so let's go ahead and return the component. All right, so I'm gonna go to the pictures since that's where I'm handling the error. I'm gonna copy this code here, and then I'm gonna go into the fetch with fetch. I'm gonna paste that in. All right, and then let's make this function name a little bit more abstract, and we'll just call it fetch data. And then instead of a hard-coded URI, we are gonna use that fetch URI. The parameter we're passing in, and then here we'll do in the use effect, it should be fetch data, and then we're going to pass those props through to the component here. We'll pass the data and the error, and let's see, let's handle in case there's leftover props. We'll use a spread operator here, and oops, here this should be use state, not set state. All right, so we've got our with fetch higher order component, and now we can go ahead and comment out this code from the pictures. We don't need this either. And then let's go ahead and add the params here, the props. We'll just go ahead and destructure it here. So we've got data and then error. And there we go, error. All right, so it still says no picture available because Right now we've commented everything out and we're importing and displaying the picture component. What we need to import now, we are going to import the with fetch HOC, and then we're going to create a new or enhanced component, and that's going to be a result of calling the with fetch. We're going to pass it the picture component and then the URI for that API to get the picture of the dog. So copy that from the pictures where we commented it out, and we're going to pass it to our with fetch HOC. And now we can display the picture with fetch instead of the picture. And we refresh that, and there we go. We have the dog displaying now, and we've cleaned up our code. So let's go ahead and do the same thing here with a quote. Comment this out. Let's comment out. Now let's go ahead and add our params, the props, and comment that out as well. Let's handle displaying the error like we did in our pictures component. And let's say if there's an error, we'll just display the error or the error message here. Okay. All right, let's go back to our index page and import this guy and create our enhanced component. Because right now there's no quote, of course, because we commented everything out. So similar to pictures with fetch, we're going to do the exact same thing. So quote with fetch, and then same, we're going to call the with fetch HOC. We're going to pass it a component, which is the quote, and then we're going to copy paste this API URI and pass that as the second param to the with fetch. And there we go. Now we have an enhanced quote component that fetches data for us. And there you go. Now we have the image and the quote components nice and cleaned up. We have all our code, the similar logic in our HOC. So if we need to make any changes, we can make whatever changes we need to here instead of having to change it in multiple components. And that wraps up this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. I hope you learned something. If you did, please subscribe to my channel, and please don't forget to hit the like button. It helps me produce more content. Leave me a comment. I do plan on reading them all this year. Thank you, and see you guys in the next episode.